Okay, man, I've missed you. We haven't talked in so long.
I
And
know.
this week, all the, the funnel hacking live memories are popping up over the last, few weeks. And it's
Yeah.
just like, it's been too long for me to see people in person.
Well, it's been an interesting year, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
I'm over it.
And everyone's situation is different depending upon where you live, what state you live in, what city you live in, what country you live in.
What we're allowed to do or go or say or
Yeah.
anything. Yeah.
And it's interesting to see the mentality and psychology of employees that work for a lot of my clients, the ones who were really locked down more, the angst and when they're now starting to reopen, it's like, do they even really want to? It's like they've had a paid vacation almost.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to see um, this. People when someone says, you know what, I've actually liked not working the past 90 days. I'm thinking to myself, well, I haven't had a break, but I can't imagine. I mean, I can see how that could happen now.
I can see it. I shifted a little bit. Honestly, I just took a couple steps back during March and April of last year and started really deciding what it is that I want to do. Kind of how you're just talking about, like pick the thing and stick to it. Don't bend it. Every time when somebody decides that's what they're going to plant their flag, it is inevitable that some old opportunities come back. And it's like a test. Like, are you really sure you're planting your flag here? Or are you going to go ahead and just take that other thing, easy money, whatever it is? Or are you really wanting to go this other direction?
One of the things that's really interesting is that focus and clarity. We actually did really well last year. We had our best year, and yet we didn't hit our goals. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and that's only because I had really high goals. And one of the things that I realized about that, it it doesn't matter if I'm shooting for the stars and then I hit the moon, I'm happy. A lot of people, what I realized is if we're conditioning people that we're not hitting our goals, a lot of times they become demotivated.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I decided to do is we just had our quarterly planning meeting for the company, and one of the things that we did, we spent about 2 weeks ahead of time getting clear, and the clarity was, for the next period. So I'm taking over hockey now. We're doing 3 periods in the year instead of 4 quarters. We're going to 3 periods in a year. We're January and February, half of February. We're sort of like I'm chalking it off and writing it off.
Mm-hmm.
Is sort of a planning period. But what we're doing is 2 6-week sprints, and that first 6-week sprint has one thing as a company that we need to accomplish. Just one thing is a total company that we need to accomplish. And then we're going to have a week regroup. And when we hit that, we'll move on to our number 2 goal that we have. And if we don't, we're going to continue focusing on number 1. Now, the good thing is the cascade effect of number 1. If they're not the thing that we're focusing on right now, the number 2 that we have, they'll naturally, it's sort of like a downsell. Like people can go into that anyway. So one of the things that I realized in doing that is the sheer excitement, and that everyone, how they can rally around us focusing on just one thing. And I have to remember, because I create chaos.
Mm-hmm.
I know this about myself. I can create chaos. And wherever I shift and focus in direction, it doesn't matter if it was a stated goal, the entire company and team follows behind. And, because this is what Dave wants, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And I realized it is in my evolution as a leader. I have to just stay very clear and focused, at least on every individual company, because I do have multiple companies now that I have ownership in and
Yeah.
operation management responsibilities for, even though I have other teams in those companies. It's just getting very clear and focused on what we're going to accomplish. That was a big lesson for me on how we can really accelerate. And here's the cool thing. We can create more growth when we do this in 12 weeks, 13 weeks with the 1 week break, than we have in the past year, which is a cool thing.
Because you're just focused on that one thing for
Yeah.
that short amount of time.
So it's interesting when we talk about, you have a lot of younger entrepreneurs that are part of your group that may be watching this or listening to this. The question that I often ask, because I work with a younger group, I'm more of a coach. It's a volunteer entrepreneurs organization, has a companies under $1 million. It's called Accelerator. So
Mm-hmm.
from 250 to 1 million, companies that want to get to their first million, how do they break through? And one of the things that it became clear, and I guess I adopted some of the strategy from that, is I said, you need to focus on one thing. Right now, you need to focus on sales.
Yeah.
And, like, well, how much do I pay people? Right now, you can't worry about that. You need sales, and you probably can't afford the people that you want to be able to afford. And how do you have those honest conversations that I love to have you part of our team? Here's what we can do. And it's really getting clear focus and having that structured communication that's important at that beginning phases.
Don't even, yeah, focus on the thing you need the most, which is usually is sales for especially people starting out or just trying to have some kind of predictable revenue every month. Don't sit here and figure out what website are you supposed to be tweaking, or what social media channel are you supposed to be posting on all the time, or what VA you need to hire because whatever. It's just focus on the one thing, and how are you going to get sales? And I think even before that, a lot of people that I work with, they don't even know who they're wanting to sell to.
They
Um,
don't know what they're offering or who. You're
that's
right.
true too. I've talked to so many people and they will talk for 30 minutes. I'll ask them one question. What are you selling? That's all I'll say. What are you selling? And they will give me a 30-minute answer. At the end of that, I cut them off usually after 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I still say, I don't know what you're selling. And then they've confused themselves by continuing to talk. So that's we gotta back way up. Some people are trying to play this game 4 years ahead of where they are, instead of just coming back and starting with the basics. I'm guilty of it too. I think I should be further ahead sometimes in certain situations than I am. And maybe ego gets in the way, or I should be able to do this. But it's like, got to come back and start at the very beginning and go through the steps in order. But
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, but because do you remember the interview? It was Dean Graciosi turned it into a commercial. It was with Larry King, and they sit down at the table, and it's the one where Dean says, "I had to reset the whole stage to just do that intro with Larry because his infomercial wasn't working." And Larry King asked Dean this one question. It was the tee up for everything to the audience. He looked right into the camera and he said, "How many of you thought that you'd be further ahead at this point in your life than you are right now?" And then he paused. And then he said, "Well, my guest, Dean Graciosi," so he used that as to tell someone sees Dean all over the internet. They see all this success. And yet Dean, they're here, he's here, and he's still not where he wanted to be. And so he can tell that story. And it's the power of the questions. It's the power of asking that deep introspective question. Listen, I know what I want to do in the next 9 years. I want to impact, have $5 billion in impact for our client group, our inner circle, so to speak, my entrepreneur incubator and I have clients that are part of it now. We're on our way. And so in order to do that, what does that mean? It means I need to stack a lot of wins between now and then. We need to be able to create a greater impact for our clients, not only just marketing funnels. How do they get the leads? How do they convert those leads? What's that life cycle, that conversation? And really, how do they build that company infrastructure to be able to support that continued growth? I often ask this question, and this stumps a lot of people that we talk to. And they say, well, what do you want to create? It's sort of that thing. What do you want to do? And they start going in on tactics. Well, I need more sales in this thing. I need more sales on that. So let me ask you a different question. If this was the last business that you were ever going to build, would you do it differently? I'm talking about a company now that would last generations beyond you.
Yeah.
That you could be the steward that grew it for the next 3 years, 5 years, 1 year, 10 years, doesn't matter. And then everything that you put in place, if you do it the right way, could last for generations. Would you be doing the same thing you are right now? And then I pause, and inevitably people like go like, huh? And they say, no, I'd probably do it differently. So
Or would they do something completely different?
and many times I have people say, no, I really don't like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Then why are you doing it? And here's the thing. I know people have to pay their mortgages, pay their rents. They've got to put their cars on the table. I mean, I was the ultimate side hustler when I stepped down. I mean, I built a $45 million business, stepped down, started all over, went through everything, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And it came to the point that I had to do something to earn money or everything was going to be repossessed, basically.
Yeah.
Creditors were calling. It was a horrendous. I remember every time my phone would call, I'd think it's another creditor. I thought it was it. I mean, it was just, I stopped answering my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And but you can turn things around. You just got to get clear and focused on what it is that you want to do and how you want to do it. And, the old adage, I've heard so many people saying, well, someone has a night job. They work at, Publix or a grocery store, stocking shelves while they're working on their day job. Yeah. You have to be willing to do that.
Right.
While I was building my business, I had multiple side hustles. In fact, one of my best side hustles I ever had was becoming a speaker, coach, and trainer for Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes.
That's a pretty good side hustle.
And I was good at it because I got paid only on selling people in their programs. I became their top closer on webinars, and I made more within a year and a half. I made more part-time, working about 14 hours a week for them than I did as the CEO of my company. But I went from being here to here. And while I was building my company, I did have those side hustles that were supporting that growth and enabling me to pay down the debt and hire the people that I needed to hire.
I had a conversation a lot like this recently on another episode. I'm not exactly sure which one, but we hear all the time, like, you should be willing to go all in and build the thing. But it's really hard to build something when you are only worried about money. And if you aren't making any money and your only concern is how are you going to pay that bill that's coming in, or your kid needs to go to the dentist or whatever, it's not going to work. It's just your mindset isn't in the right place. You're not creating from a space of want. You're creating from a space of need.
And you serve people differently when you're serving from a place of need versus desire.
Yeah. And it's okay to go get that job or to keep your job, even if you're not happy, to give yourself the cushion to be able to walk away with ease. Now, I was lucky when I left. It was 10 years ago this month that I left teaching. And it was when I resigned. I had no plan. Granted, I still had several months of contract left. So it wasn't like I just shut the door and walked away from my responsibilities and my mini little paycheck that I got every month. But it was making the decision to say, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm standing up and I'm making a change, but I still had the safety net of my career in the transition. If I had left and shut all those doors, I don't think it would have been a good thing. First of all, just professionally, that's just not who I am. But allowing me to make my decision and say, I'm not doing this anymore, closing that door, in a sense, allowed other opportunities to start presenting themselves.
Yeah.
And I could then pick and choose what I wanted instead of having to choose something because I needed to pay my electricity. So there's no fault in having a job, whether it's working at Starbucks, McDonald's, if it has to be, what grocery store, whatever it is, to keep you in a space that is comfortable, your roof is over your head, your needs are met, so you can create from that place of abundance and of serving instead of all about you and what needs to be taken care of on your side. We overlook that. It's not talked about enough in our entrepreneurial circles. it's a lot of hustle and grind and make it and sleep on couches and whatever. Well, I didn't have that choice. I had two children and a mortgage. Like I wasn't going to be sleeping on anybody's couch and trying to figure it out. And there's not anything wrong with making calculated decisions when it comes to what you're going to do with the rest of your life. You don't have to just abruptly make the changes.
The easiest time to do that is when you can sleep on your parents' couch.
Yeah. So when you're 18 and you're still trying to figure it out, or maybe even 24.
Yeah, if you're 24, 25, if your parents will let you do that, you do it. And here's the thing, I've heard Tony Robbins say, burn the boat and all that. Those are the kind of things that got me in trouble.
Yeah.
Because, try to build wings while you're falling. And it's really hard it's challenging to do that. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's people do it all the time. It's challenging. What I've often noticed, and it's what you said, Amanda, is that so many people, when they cut off that lifeline, they go into fight or flight and panic mode, and it holds them back. I often tell people, if you think you want to do something great, you have your 40 hours a week, you need to work another 40 hours a week. I mean, I know, because I used to work, anywhere from 80 to 120 hours a week in getting it going. In fact, probably up until recently, I mean, I still was working 12 to 14 hour days up until I had COVID. And then once I got COVID about a month and a half ago, I've been winding down those extra hours more because I didn't have the energy.
I have to. Yeah.
I have it back again, but I haven't been putting it back in because I'm trusting my team more to do what they need to do. But here's the thing, I often tell people, you've got to pretend that your side hustle is a full-time job. You've got to put in the efforts in order to make it happen. And when your side hustle's income is about 65 to 70% of what your full-time gig is, then give yourself permission to step down if that's what you want to do. But you can make those decisions then, because you're not going to have to worry about your bills.
Yeah. And that's not a fun place to be.
I know,
especially if you have other people that you're responsible for.
Yeah, I've been there multiple times. So
yeah, I've been there myself. And as entrepreneurs and small business owners, maybe even solopreneurs, we tend to reinvent ourselves maybe more than the regular person. Just like we talked about earlier, how we sit back, we create something. We love the creation process, right? It's like the infatuation of a relationship. And then once it gets to the like mundane part, it's like, well, it's time to create something new. So instead of just sticking with what's working, we decide to throw something else in the mix, like, so we can get that creative infatuation going again. But honestly, if you can just get past that point of that temptation to go create something new again or add something to the mix, you'll be astounded of what you really can accomplish with this thing that you started. I remember Russell Brunson said, basically, when I was teaching webinars, he said, you just need to do this and focus on this one thing until you hit $1 million, and then you can go create something else. Because he understands the mind of the creative and entrepreneur. We want to go create all the time. And so that means we're going to have all these little unfinished creations, not really serving people at their fullest and not monetizing very well. But if we can stay focused and just stick with it, and maybe find some people to come in and support us through the mundane times, then, and stay maybe in the visionary role, then we'll be astounded, I think, by the results of just sticking with that one thing and seeing it through to fruition, instead of like, well, this is getting kind of boring. I don't want to talk about the same stuff every day, so I'm going to go do something completely different. And I see a lot of people trying to do that.
I see that happen, and I've had clients that are natural healthcare doctors, and they do work on thyroid and autoimmune, and it's the funnel that works for them. I want to do something else. Why? I'm bored of giving the same talk. They change it. It's not working as well. Yes, because you've got it dialed in now.
Yeah.
So many people, I wonder if you hear this. So many people come and they're like, well, I want to do a webinar. I just want to record it once and I want the money just to fall in. And I'm like, you guys realize that if I did that with Tony and Chet, I would have been fired, because the first 4 weeks I sold shit.
Yeah.
And then it was that 90-day process, 60 days after that, or finally when I nailed it, that I went from being no closes to having consistently over the next 2 years the highest close rate.
Right.
Why?
You stuck to it.
I did the same thing every single time. I asked the same question as if it was the first time I was asking the question.
Yeah.
Russell talked a lot about this. He did his webinar hundreds of times live.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you this.
Every Thursday. Every Thursday he did it.
Every Thursday, but he was doing it more than that in the beginning.
Yeah.
Live. Think about this. How many of his clients sit and do their webinar every week live until it's perfected?
No.
And how many of them actually will go back and watch their webinar that they've just done, or the video that they do, and seeing why when you watch the metrics at 4 minutes and 36 seconds, all of a sudden I get a drop
All
off.
the people leave.
What did I say in the 30 seconds before there that all of a sudden people are making the decision they could drop off?
Yeah.
It's doing that analysis, that deep dive. It's important.
I agree. People just don't want to put in that kind of effort. In today's world of internet marketing and online-ness, we are sold the idea that you can just build a site and put a video on it and sell stuff. And that's as easy as it is. And I will say right now, especially for people that want to create online courses, they want to be a coach, they want to be an infopreneur, so to speak, it may be one of the hardest things to get into. And it's not hard to start, but it's difficult to stay the path and to stay consistent and to be successful at it. It doesn't happen overnight. And we're sold the idea that it happens really fast and it happens without real effort. And that's just not the case at all.
Well, I want you to think about one other thing. Everyone's shooting for that first million. Well, even that first, for me, I believe, based on what I've seen, it's harder to get from that first 100,000 than it is to go from 100 to 250, or from 250 to 750,
Yeah.
and then 750 to 2 million. That getting liftoff off the ground in the beginning is the hardest thing. And if you're listening to this right now or watching this, you probably aren't that person, because you're here learning. You follow Amanda and learning the skills and strategy you need to do. But think about this. What do you really want to create? Why do you want to create it? And why are you willing to put the time, energy, and effort into it? And is it something that you're willing to put that effort in for the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? Because you can create some amazing things if you have the patience to see it through, to create that awesomeness.
Yeah. I'll say, and as I said before, how, I'm just kind of exhausted sometimes by the process.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot involved, and I don't sugarcoat it with my clients, and I hope that I don't sugarcoat it with my podcasts and content. I want to showcase that while it is possible for anybody to be able to package their knowledge and to take their expertise and help others with that, it is not a walk in the park every single day. It doesn't feel like work all the time, because for me, I am fulfilling that passion, and it is energizing whenever I'm working with the right people, right? Whenever I'm saying no to the wrong people. Yeah. But all of the effort that goes into it and the consistency behind it, I think that's where some of the exhaustion comes in. It's just like, I think, have you seen the picture of the guy with the pickaxe and he's mining gold? And then on the top level, one guy is ready, he turns away, he's done. And the bottom level is like, it's right there. That's where most people are when they decide they're going to walk away. And it's like one more pickaxe in, and you can see the light's going to break through. But it's just making sure you're digging that tunnel the entire time with the same intention that when you started. And I think that goes back to where we started at the very beginning of our conversation, is setting up the idea of what it is that you actually want to be doing, and going for that without straying, no windy paths, no, garden labyrinth of this maze to get there. Just stay on the straight and narrow, and it's going to happen with consistency. But I think that I get distracted a lot personally.
Here's why. It's testing our commitment to whatever it is we said we wanted. And if you're willing to see it through when the only one supporting is your God or your higher power, whoever it is, because many times we abandon ourselves.
Yeah.
And so the question is, how committed are we? How committed are you? How committed are we to whatever it is that we say that we want? And what I often talk to clients and say, well, why do you want this? What's your big purpose? What's your big why? Because if you don't have that down, you're going to stall. And so,
do you think people hesitate answering that question because they might feel their why is inferior?
Either the why is inferior, or they've never really thought. I mean, think about this. As a human, how many times do we say, what's my purpose? Why am I here on earth?
Mm-hmm.
What am I supposed to do? I think it just became clear to me in the past couple years that I want to impact. I want to ignite the fire in young entrepreneurs. I want to inspire them to create the greatness and the change and the impact that they want. And that's where it comes into the impact. And that's where my $5 billion in impact doesn't mean that we're doing $5 billion.
Right.
The people who are part of our group or incubator are making that kind of impact and change in the world through their business and how they help people. And, but most people don't know. Here's the thing I also want you to think about. It's okay to make an extra $500 a month. It's okay to make an extra $2,000 a month. Think about this. If you can create a business that makes an extra $2,000 a month, that's $24,000 a year. If you had money in a CD in a bank, how much money would you have to have in the bank to make an extra $25,000 a year? You'd have to probably have over $500,000 a year, or $500,000 in the account. So I want you to think about this. When you can build a continuity, change your frame of reference in the shift, in that, yes, big is nice, but big is very different too. What happens when you have a business that does $250,000 to $500,000, you may go from $500,000 to 750, but because you have to hire more people, may not be making any more money.
Yeah.
So you have to start looking at am I creating an annuity that's paying me every month based upon the efforts that I've done up on the front side. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it.
Yeah. I was listening to a book, and I have a few on rotation that I'll kind of go back and forth to. They're not something there's things that I can just pop in and out of. Mm-hmm. And when I posted it online, and I got some funny comments, but it said bigger isn't necessarily better. It's just bigger. And that he was talking about business. Sometimes, like, I got into business to have freedom and to create the things that I want to create. So that's why I've stayed pretty small. I call it now concierge coaching, right? It's it's not one-on-one all the time necessarily, but boy, it sure feels like it, because I just keep it little, but big power behind it. If I want to go to that next level of, 7-figure, 8-figure business, there's a lot of stuff that comes along with that I'm just not interested in. I don't want an office space outside of my home. I don't want a team of 20 plus people managing all these operations. I just don't. And so there's nothing wrong with that. I am fine with hitting the numbers that I want under my terms and controlling the product that I produce. I want to control it. Maybe that's a bad thing. I don't know. But of course, I want to have some help along the way. But there's a big difference between getting up to, say, 250 to 500, like you said, and then beyond that. I think for me, that 500K mark is absolutely perfect. And for the why, It's just like whenever I went into teaching school, I wanted to have an impact on lives, right? I wanted to help change the world through teaching people how to do things. Being in a public school or private school where I ended my career, I was able to impact those lives, but now the impact is exponential. And I will have impacted well over 1 million people before my career is over. Whereas if I had stayed in education as it was, I was only really impacting that 150 kids at a time. That would have taken a long time to get that kind of impact.
Yeah.
So for me, it's about that impact and kind of how you are changing business as well, and the way that people can consume information and get it out there and change other people's lives. I just get to be a catalyst for it and a facilitator. But I also get to go back to another part of my personal why is for my kids to see that there's another way outside of what they've been conditioned to know, and that it's okay to take risks and it's okay to create their own path. And obviously the money behind what I do is to help provide, a really wonderful future for them and hopefully beyond. So those are my whys, but still staying focused and consistent can be challenging even when you do have that defined purpose, in my opinion.
Well, that's when it helps for us to put guardrails around ourselves
Mhm.
when we know ourselves.
Oh yeah. I have gotten a lot better about it, to be honest with you, about the shiny objects. I just kind of put some blinders on or sunglasses maybe so I don't see them as much, and I've gotten a lot better at saying no thank you. Or my favorite thing to do now is just refer that shiny object onto somebody else that it'll be a great fit for. It doesn't have to be me that takes it, right? I can still take advantage of the opportunity just in a different way. And
Yeah.
that's really kind of, I
Well,
really rather do that actually, is refer
and,
that out.
and that's how you build your network of people, um, and that's getting intentional. Who do I want to work with, and don't I want to work with?
Yeah. And how do you
What's
want to spend your time working with those people? That's also very important.
what big question do your people have?
My people are really just an overwhelm. They don't know what questions they have because they are just too deep in the thought process and in the consumption of what they're supposed to be doing. Or, like I said, they're thinking 4 steps ahead when really they just got to come back and focus on this simple first step. So, my people don't know what questions to ask because what you don't know, you don't know.
Hmm.
And it's really all about, where do I start and how do I execute moving forward? It's not anything obscure like, really high level questions. It's just, how do I get out of this overwhelm so I can actually start making progress? They're just treading water, barely keeping their head above. And it's just, I get to come in as this guide to maybe give them a little life jacket and like prop them up and then lead them on. And that's, it's nice. I do love high level thinking though. And we do get into that once we get out of that panicking, treading water phase
Yeah.
and get into where we can start seeing a lot of those light bulbs go off.
If you could ask me any question for your people, what would it be?
How do you know what the one thing is that you need to focus on?
Good question. Um, I can tell you this: uh, develop, work, and trusting your gut, trusting your intuition, um, and it's funny because I'll get advice from a lot of different people that is counter to what I want to do. And so trust your gut. The other thing is write everything down. I use mind map software. I use mind map because it's easy to move things around. We just started using something that's free online. It's called Workflowy. Seriously,
Mm-hmm.
just Workflowy. And it's the exact same way. And what we do is we dump out all of our ideas, or I brainstorm a lot with the team, or you can brainstorm by yourself or your coach, and all the things that you want to accomplish, and then why you want to accomplish them. But see if you can group it down into the one big thing. I learned something. I remember a seminar I went to about 15 years ago. And the person, and I've used this since then, it was AJ Playden. I don't know if you know
Yep.
AJ. So AJ did a little graph where he drew 3 lines or 4 lines. And he said, okay, how many of this sounds like your business? You're working a little bit on A, and then you go work on B, and then you jump to D, and then you're on C. And you've got all these projects that you're moving forward, but none of them are going to make you any money until you get to the finish line. And one of the things he said is, now, I want you to imagine what happens if you work on A, forget about B, C, and D, work on A until you get to the finish line. Finish line means that's producing revenue for you. Okay, accomplished. Now you pick the next one and based upon your priority, and there's ways and matrices you can pick your priorities. But let's just say you know exactly what the next one is. That you're going to accomplish a whole lot more, a whole lot quicker, and being faster to the cash. So that's the question I often talk to entrepreneurs. They say, what do I need to do first? What's going to bring you fastest to the cash? Because the number one challenge that most entrepreneurs have is cash flow.
Absolutely.
And so where can I get the most leverage right away in order to help generate that cash?
Yeah.
That's what I would say. But be real to yourself. Sit down, plan it, do your graphs, and say, what is one thing that I need to focus in on? I'll give you an example. This morning, we went through our 6-week sprint. So we're doing it in 2 6-week sprints for the quarter. Our 6-week sprint, we have one thing we're going to accomplish, and we just reviewed our 28 steps of tasks that we need to accomplish in the next 6 weeks in order to make that happen. Now, here's the cool thing. When that happens, that's about $60,000 a month in the next 6 week incremental revenue for the business. Just in 6 weeks, we accomplished this one thing.
In 28 steps.
In 28 steps equals $60,000 a month in additional incremental revenue.
Not very many people break it down to something that executable.
Well, that's what we had to do.
Yeah.
But you don't have to. Please know, you don't have to do any of this. You can do whatever.
No, you don't. You can continue doing the things that you're doing, especially if they're working. But
if you're sitting here saying, well, how do I do that? Pick one thing. And then we spent 8 hours with, just think about the amount of team hours I put into this.
Yeah.
We had 8 hours, and on my leadership team, I had 8 of us, 7 of us on a call. 7 of us spending 8 hours each. That's a lot of freaking hours.
A lot of hours.
Just to break down what are the steps to accomplish this. Now, if you think about it, 60 grand for 6 weeks of work is not a bad thing.
But that's not 60 grand standalone. It's 60 grand per month recurring, right? After that. So it's much bigger than that 60 payoff.
Yeah, it's about 700, close to 700 and something grand additional revenue incremental
per year.
Go on to step 2, and that alone is more than that over the period of time.
Yeah. So I can already hear people going, well, what if I don't have a team? What if I don't have all of those man hours? But that's where you find and employ the help of a coach or consultant to help you and guide you. You don't have to have a massive team of 7 or 8 people to make something like this happen. It does help, though, to have at least one person in your corner, not only to help brainstorm and fine tune these ideas and create these steps, but also for accountability, right? Because not only are you guys setting up the one thing and all the steps to follow, but then now you probably have accountability in place to make sure that those targets are being hit every single week.
Yeah, we have a project manager. So I have a project manager. Everyone has different roles and responsibilities. Yeah. We're meeting every Monday. Tonight, at the end of the day, we have a meeting about one segment of the project. Every morning, I meet for about an hour to an hour and a half with 2 people on my team, and all we're doing is going through our thought process on the strategy and the creative that goes around it. So it's really, you just got to dedicate the time.
Yeah. But it's okay that you don't have, if you're listening or watching and you don't have a massive team in place to do this with. Find an accountability partner, find a coach, enroll yourself in a program that's going to hold you to it and pay for that program, right? Because you're going to pay attention whenever you put in the money behind it.
You hope you pay attention.
You should.
You should pay
Hopefully.
attention.
Some people don't. I still am astounded by the amount of people that pay for things that don't pay attention.
I
But
I I understand. Like, that's why I said, um, so yes, get clear. I mean, think about it, Amanda. I mean, if anyone wants to listen to my TED Talk, just put my name in there and put
yeah,
TED.
I'll put a link to that on here.
And you can go from having everything to losing everything and then turn it around in a matter of time. My thing was assembling a team of superheroes. And it's so funny because I told that story and no one knew the struggles I was going. The only person who knew the struggles I was going through was my mom. My dad, I didn't tell until creditors. He's like, "That Dave, is everything okay?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I have people asking me if they know where you are, or how I can locate
Oh
you."
gosh.
And I said, "Well, this is what's going on." And I didn't ask him for any money, didn't ask for
Yeah.
any help. I just said, "Here's what's going on. Thank you for letting me know. Sorry you're getting those calls, Dad."
Yeah.
And so when we look at that and what's going on in those situations, I tell you this story because what happened to me is I put the last one of my dad's first cousin. So she's in her 80s, I think. I wished her happy birthday. She's like, "I saw your talk. How did you do this with no money when you were in debt?" It was so funny. For the birthday, thank you. And I said, I leveraged the last credit card that didn't shut me down. And I went deeper in debt to be able to hire the people to help me build something to get out of it, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And thank you, Discover card. I still to this day forever, because you're the only card that didn't cancel me, believe it or not.
Wow.
So.
And that's where you again go back to trusting your intuition, trusting your gut, and knowing what best next move you should make.
And here's the thing, I was lucky in the sense that I was crashing our world around us, and yet my wife still supported me. Even though I was self-destructive and crashing everything, she believed that I would figure things out.
And she was right.
She was right, but it's sometimes nice to have someone who believes in you when you don't even believe in yourself.
Absolutely.
If you don't have that person in your personal life, it's good to have a coach that can help you.
Yeah, I just got goosebumps for that. We all deserve somebody like your wife.
Yes.
Whether we have to pay them to be that person or not.
I paid people too. I had coaches. But it's I say she's either crazy or a saint, and maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah, probably has to be a little both. An entrepreneur spouse definitely has a different lifestyle of roller coaster living than the typical 9-to-5er.
I mean, here's the thing. We didn't go on a lot of family vacations. I was working all the time.
Yeah.
But, it was almost that thing that made me think about, why am I doing it? And I was creating a situation where I wasn't spending as much time with my family as I wanted to. So I reprioritized. I mean, everyone knows that at 7 p.m., I always joke if I'm on a call, "Hey, I've got 2 minutes to pumpkin time. I'm going to turn into a pumpkin," because I made a commitment that at least I'd be at the dinner table. I would do certain things so that way I was there.
Yeah.
When I was coaching my son, I never missed a practice, never missed a game. In fact, I went to Necker Island once late 10 years ago because I was coaching the game, and I promised my son I would not miss a game. And even on once in a lifetime trip that you don't get money back for not being there an extra day, I said I made that commitment. So the other thing is, if you make commitments to yourself and other people, keep those commitments.
Absolutely. It's just integrity. Integrity with yourself is just as important as with other people.
But I've got to say, Amanda, I mean, you and I have known each other about 5 years now.
Mm-hmm. Going on 6, I believe.
Going on 6 years. Yep. And, I got to say, I'm proud of you, what you've been able to do and accomplish, because you were at a very different place back then than you are today. And, you should be very proud of yourself, and anyone who's watching. Amanda's created some amazing things. She's been through everything. And I often say this to, if you're looking at who you're going to hire as a mentor or coach. I just had this conversation with someone this morning, and someone who's in my accelerate. Well, I'll just say this. I had this conversation with someone this morning who was saying, um, you know, I think I need to just spend time with a coach to help me through this. I've hired a coach. I said, great. And they're going to give you advice on what? And she told me, and I said, let me ask you a question. What experience does this person have in building a company? Where do you want to take your company? So where does this person have experience in building a company to that level? And they're like, I don't know. I didn't ask that question. I said, so if someone's giving you advice on this, and this, wouldn't it be beneficial that they didn't just read it in a book or at a seminar or workshop, and they've actually been there? The reason that if you're watching this right now, Amanda can help you is she's been there from the pre-startup phase to the startup phase, and she's seen everything, and she's worked with and helped some amazing people. I'm talking about people who are doing 7, 8 plus multiple 8 figures. She's been many times the person behind the scenes to help them get there, that they don't always talk about, because that's how I was always the person behind the scenes for years too. And so if you guys are watching this, she's a pretty good person to have in your corner.
Thanks, Dave. I don't talk about stuff like that much. But one thing I'll wrap up with is that, and I said it on a recent episode with someone else, that everything that you've been through, you were talking about your debt and just the crisis that you had to, overcome. Everything that we've been through, whether it's a wrong career choice or which really wasn't wrong, it was just not the right one. Every relationship that maybe didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, every business venture, every whatever, it's only giving you more fuel, more power to help others through what they're going through right now. So a lot of times I think we try to sweep all that stuff under the rug like it never happened, or forget about it because it was maybe traumatic or just brings up bad memories for us. But if we hadn't gone through that, then how can we help others get through something similar? And I think if we can all just declare or claim that piece of us a little bit more loudly, and put it out there a little bit more openly. And I'm speaking to myself here because I hide a lot of the stuff that I've been through in the past, just because we want to present this I've got it all together persona, right? I've always been together, but I haven't. And changing careers, getting divorced, selling a home, like all these things, blowing up a massive business to start something that I wanted to have, not just be behind the scenes all the time. Like all of these little things really just give me more ability to help others navigate the same or similar waters.
I understand and agree.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we didn't talk about a lot of the things we said we're going to do. Maybe we'll do it another time.
I know. Yeah, we'll have to do another episode about that. This was too good. Just candid conversation with David Asarnow. Like it was perfect. Thanks so much for being here with us.
It's my honor. Thank you.
See you soon.
Yep.
Hey, thanks for checking out this video. Subscribe and ring the bell if you haven't done that already. And if you'd like to check out more of our videos, go ahead and just tap the screen right here.